Welcome to Moments in Time and Space, a microfiction podcast, bringing you tales of horror and suspense with your host, Aaron Maracle. Hello everyone. The Budget Gourmet is a cooking program watched by millions of people. The wonderful Chef George loves to show his viewers how they can make great meals without breaking the bank. Let's tune in and see what's on the menu today. The studio monitors flash the title card Budget Gourmet and fade into a shot of a large kitchen. Behind a tall wooden counter was a husky chef with a jolly smile on his face. He waved at the camera and bobbed his head, causing his chef's hat to wobble back and forth. Welcome back to the Budget Gourmet! Remember that good eating doesn't have to cost good money. Chef George has been busy whipping up chuck cheese casserole, and I think it is just about ready, Chef George said. On cue, a timer beeped, and Chef George bounced over the oven, grabbing a pair of oven mitts on the way. With a flourish, the chef opened the oven and carefully pulled out a casserole dish. He turned and showed the bubbling cheese goodness to the camera. The studio audience oohed and awed. Isn't that just amazing looking? Chef George said. This recipe costs less than $15, but let's see if it holds up on the dinner table. The camera panned to the left to reveal a glass table with two people sitting at it. One of them was a tall man with a thin face, who offered a smile at the camera. The other person was a small woman in a tight-fitting red dress with bright red lipstick. She offered a small wave to the camera, and the audience politely applauded. Chef George slid into the frame and began to dish out the casserole for the people at the table. I hope none of you are lactose intolerant. The audience laughed, and Chef George gave each of the people a generous portion of the dish. The pile of noodles, melted cheese, and ground beef looked simple and comforting. Once Chef George was done, he motioned for the two people to try the dish. They dug in and began to nod their heads. The woman in red licked her lips and smiled at Chef George. This is delicious. I cannot believe this cost us $15. Chef George beamed and tapped the casserole dish with a spatula. The secret is in sourcing your ingredients and keeping them simple. Noodles, cheese, a few spices, and of course, the ground chuck. The tall man pointed toward his plate with his fork. This dish is incredible, but finding cheap but good hamburger is the real magic here. Chef George shook his head. Not hamburger, ground chuck. The man bobbed his head. Yeah, you call it chuck, I call it ground beef. No. This really is ground chuck. As in Chuck Parson, my producer. The people at the table stopped chewing, and the audience went silent. Chef George made his way back over the counter and set the casserole dish down slowly. He looked up into the camera and flashed a broad smile. Chuck Parson always had a comment to make about the show. The recipes were boring, I didn't present the dish at the right angle, I wasn't pushing the cookbooks enough. Chuck just kept going on and on with his comments. He just kept digging and digging at me, Chef George said. The people at the table were spitting out their food and gagging. There were heaving noises coming from the audience. There was now a flurry of activity in the studio. Chef George picked up a wooden spoon and began to stir the casserole around the dish. Chuck once said that he wished he had an on-camera part. That way, the audience would have a reason to tune in each week, to see some real talent, or so he said. The tall man had vomited the entire contents of his stomach onto the studio floor. The woman in the red dress was weeping uncontrollably, mascara running down her face with the trail of tears. People were fleeing the studio in a half-panic. Chef George laughed and clapped his hands. Well, Chuck got his wish. Join me next week where I show you what we can do with your leftover chuck. I'll give you a hint. It involves a hash. Keep on cooking, everyone. How do you like your ground chuck? Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter at MomentsInTAS. Feel free to recommend this podcast to others and help it grow. The opening and closing theme is Creepy Night by Daniel Carlton. Until next time, be safe, be smart, and be well. See you soon.